Before we go over the printmaking process, I wanted to first go over the chemicals that we use in the darkroom. The first chemical we use is called Dectol. Just like D76 developed our film, Dectol will develop our print on our photo paper. You only need to leave your paper in this chemical for about 30 seconds, placing it face down and lightly agitating in the bin. Next, we have indicator stop bath. This yellow chemical will do just what its name says. It will stop the development process. Please keep in mind that the Dectol and stop bath neutralize one another, and be careful to let your print in tongs drip thoroughly before transfer. Keep all tongs with their original chemical to prevent the chemicals from losing their potency. Keep your print in this chemical face down for 30 seconds, agitating the bin lightly. The last chemical we use is Fixer. This is the same type of fixer that we used when developing our film. It will prevent your paper from deteriorating in white light after it leaves the darkroom. Your print should soak in this chemical for at least 2 minutes to avoid blue or purple splotches from appearing. That happens to paper when it's not properly preserved. After your 2 minutes are up, your print can now be exposed to white light, but the final step is a 5-minute water bath. Leave the water running and take this time to clean up your enlarger or make another print. After your 5 minutes are done, you can hang up your print to dry. Next, we will discuss the enlarger anatomy and function. An enlarger is a tool photographers use to project their negative onto a piece of light-sensitive photo paper. The first thing to familiarize yourself with would be the timer. This is how you will control when the enlarger projects light and when it is done with the exposure. We also use this timer when developing our film, so it should be relatively familiar and easy for you to use. The timer has two functions. One, to time the exposure and turn off the enlarger when the clock hits 0 using the time function, and 2, to stay on and allow the photographer to focus and perfect the image before the exposure. Next, we will take a quick look into the interior of our enlarger. It is made up of a special light bulb and a series of lenses that will amplify the light and shine it through your negative. Below the light and lenses is a special area to put your negatives. This is called the negative carrier, and it can be accessed by lifting the lever on one side of your enlarger. The negative carrier is designed to hold your negatives safely in place and frame one selected negative for a print. Under the enlarger, we have what's called a filter holder. This is something that you will use later in photo 2 and definitely in photo 3 to hold filters in place during an exposure. The final two important parts of your enlarger are the focus knob and the elevation knob. These are important for focusing your image as well as making your image larger or smaller to fit a specific paper size or crop your print to a more interesting composition. A tool you will use in conjunction with the enlarger is the photo paper easel. This easel will hold your photo paper in place while the enlarger exposes the paper, creating nice white margins if used properly. Simply line up the easel opening with the enlarger projection, then with the lights off, add your photo paper. For demonstration purposes, this is a piece of cardstock, so I will leave the lights on to show you. Open the easel and line your paper up with the ridges inside. This will perfectly align your photo paper with your print and give you crisp margin. Finally, this is the process with only the safety lights turned on. Here you can see me using the focus setting to align and focus my print. Once I'm happy with the composition and focus, it will be time to move on and make a test strip. Test strips are used to determine how much light needs to pass through your negative to get a good print with decent contrast. To determine this, we will use a small strip of photo paper, called a test strip, and use a pre-planned variable of time to select the best exposure. In this case, we're using intervals of 2 seconds. Here you see me putting my test strip across the composition and covering 3/4 of it with a light blocker. I have set my timer for 2 seconds using the time function on the clock. I am holding my light blocker over 3/4 of my test strip during this first exposure. When the timer is done, I will repeat this process and move the light blocker to expose a new 1/4 of my test strip until I have exposed the entire strip for at least 2 seconds. The end result will give me a test strip with 2, 4, 6 and 8-second exposures to help me determine how much time I need to properly expose my print without wasting paper. Once my test exposures are complete, I will take my test strip over to the chemicals and follow the directions from earlier in this video. After reviewing my test strip in white light outside of the darkroom, I determined that I needed an exposure somewhere between 2 and 4 seconds. I chose 3 seconds. The rest of the process is simply developing your print. The final result is a pretty good print with decent contrast. You can see that I preserve both the very light areas as well as the very dark areas with tones in between them. With some editing, this can be a great photo.